We are live on Facebook with Deva Presence, this
Hello,
beautiful
everybody.
man. I love your deep, sexy voice. Um, Deva Presence developed orgasmicheart.com with online courses about sensuality, tantric style meditations, relationship building, and sensual body work after 10 years of deep practices. He has a huge passion for all things natural and sustainable. Living a pleasure-filled life is definitely an important part of our regenerative future.
Yeah.
Beautiful. I love the title.
Oh,
The meaning
yeah. We got
of
some good things to do
love,
today.
multi-orgasmic, long-lasting multi-orgasmic experiences for all genders. Tell us, Deva, why is this important?
Well, I would say for me, to speaking for myself, like it totally transformed the way that I engage with a partner in terms of like the making of love, because before I thought of making love like sex, like, oh yeah, we're just having sex. And of course, there's a lot of pleasure in that and fun and like, connection. That's very beautiful. But when I started looking at it differently, like, oh, I'm actually cultivating a a way that we're unifying together and being like literally like exuding the love vibration, right? Exuding the sensation of
Mm.
love. This totally changed my attitude towards wanting to extend and prolong that experience, the making of love, prolong that. Because of course, as we know, mostly we all know, most love making is about 3 to 10 minutes if there's some foreplay. Yeah.
Mhm.
So it's quite short, it's to the point, and there's this kind of release and finishing ending quality, almost like looking for an ending. Like, oh, I
Mhm.
want to get to this climax. And there's like literally a race, like, okay, can we get to that climax within the time that either he's going to finish or she's going to finish, and there's this emphasis on the performance. But if we can
Mhm.
step back and make love for the sake of love making, of curating an experience and being together in this kind of oxytocin explosion and expansion, then there's a whole new nuance to why we are cultivating our connections together. Yeah.
Mhm. That's so beautiful. So it's like definitely setting the intention of making love and not just using the word love making, but actually consciously making love.
Yes, consciously making love. And I first got more conscious about it with a self-love practice where I'm
Mm.
actually, touching myself and getting to know myself and loving these qualities and nuances that are different from getting off, because before, oh, I'm hard, I need to get this thing off in order for me to like, have this beautiful sensation, but end it, so to speak. It's almost like the climax was the goal, and then it's done, And
Mhm.
instead, it's like, wait a second, can I feel pleasure in other parts of my body and be with myself in this loving, sensual embrace? Yeah. So it had to start with myself, definitely, because to be honest with you, the reason I got into a lot of this work is because I had a lot of insecurities around, sex and connecting and like how was I and how big am I or am I good enough and all these things, right?
Mm.
And so it's because of that I went into the exploration to really get to know, well, what does it mean to make good love making, and what does that look like, and how am I doing this? Am I doing it well or not? And got into tantra and started going to all these trainings and really expanded my complete horizons on what that means. A lot of
Mm.
it was crying and breaking apart, for sure.
Mm.
Mostly, I would
A
say,
lot of people don't realize that a lot of this tantric workshops are people like dealing with all their repressed emotions and trauma.
exactly. They never know that. I'm like, oh yeah, it's gonna be sexy and juicy, and then you're like
Mhm.
crying.
Mm.
beating pillows and going crazy, you know?
Uh-huh. I want to just take a step back into the insecurities you talked about around being, size and are you good enough, and how those insecurities, how they come out, if you don't look at them, how do they come out in lovemaking?
For me, it comes out with like not being clear about the act and not really having the will to really express one's needs or ask what one needs, and like kind of there's this kind of sneaky hiding aspect to the lovemaking. And I've even seen this in people who've been together for years, where there's still not a clear quality to the coming together and formulating an experience. You know, like, okay, we're going to sleep, and then maybe you touch some parts and say, oh, okay, and then something starts happening, and then you get lost in the passion of it, right? Rather than, oh, okay, let's sit, let's breathe together, let's look into each other's eyes, and let's feel what is here and how we wish to begin, and like let that be a part of the lovemaking, and not rushing to the intercourse as if lovemaking begins when you come together. It's like, oh, now we started lovemaking. No, lovemaking begins from the first kiss, from the caress of the hair, from massaging the body. This is all a genuine aspect of us loving one another, beyond just the intercourse act.
Yes. And I feel like a lot of people, it's like when you're just going for that kind of like pleasure, quick, done, without an intention, without really any kind of depth within yourself, that kind of passion can burn out quite quickly. And then leaving people disillusioned around, do you need to do something?
It's going to bring more light in here.
And then make them disillusioned around sex, and then like the spark goes out and no one understands really why the spark has gone out.
Yeah, so the whole like spark, the whole like, oh, I'm no longer having my desire, I don't feel my desire. And I've worked with hundreds of people, and I'm just going to give you one of the ways why that happens. Because we're talking about the making of love, and some people are out there like, hey, I haven't had sex in years, and with my wife, for example.
It's common.
After years, it's common. 40% of relationships, that are long-term relationships, only have sex a few times a year.
40%.
Yes. Only make love 2, 3, 4 times a year, maybe.
It's the truth. It's true. I've worked with a lot of people. This is the situation.
Yeah, it's full on. So of course some people are like, hey, we're not even making love. There's no desire there. That desire can be cultivated, but you have to look at something outside of the sexual act that's causing the distrust or the misunderstanding of not being able to come together and recultivate the sexual union. And so this is why I have a full course on massage, particularly, and how to touch, because I think it's a wonderful entryway on beginning to rekindle something without the pressure around the actual sexual act. And still be creating a love-making experience. Right?
I love that.
Of course.
Well, believe me, as I've been a tantric touch magician for many years myself, and it's just like massage opens up the whole body and gets all the sexy juiciness flowing. And when we see that the whole body is a sexual organ, then we don't have to spend just all this time just trying to get off on this one organ, but we're spreading that energy all around the body.
Yeah. And it came up, a reason why I have orgasmicheart.com is because when I first experienced the pleasure in the heart space, and I'm not talking about some like energetic woo-woo, you're like, oh yeah, I feel the tingliness. No. I felt orgasm like here in
Yeah.
the chest. And I was mind blown. Like, what? You can feel the pleasure you normally feel down here in this part of your body. It was unbelievable for me, and it
Mm.
completely changed like the why behind the lovemaking. Because before, the why was, oh, okay, you got to stimulate down here, and then at some point you get this intensity down there. Instead, I realized, slow down, soften, open, feel the beauty of the connection, and it can be allowed to move in other parts of the body. Sometimes I feel it behind the neck, sometimes in the front neck, sometimes in the
Mm.
back, in the spine. I feel orgasmic pleasure. It's unbelievable. And it's not the kind that goes and it peaks and it's done. You know, it's kind of like it glows,
Totally. It's
and
much more intense.
it's more intense, and it kind of almost like forever glows until you just calm
Yeah.
down and ease. It's like this never ending beauty. Go ahead.
I am just so enjoying your description of this. Ugh, it's all like the never-ending glow. It's almost like, to me, a climax. Like when I really want to, like, have that peak. To me, that's like, okay, I have to get done and leave and go and do something now. So let's have the peak so that I can. But if I really want to last for a long time, it's actually, those waves are even more powerful orgasmic energy.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I find it for me as I'm still, and I've been doing this for years. So please, if you haven't felt like orgasm in the heart or in the body and Kundalini rising, don't worry. Most people have not felt this at all. It does take a practice. It's a cultivation. It does take a willingness to be open in a level of vulnerability that's like unbelievable, to really have
Mm-hmm.
this energy move through you. When I first experienced it, it was kind of like too intense and a bit scary, you know. So
Mm-hmm.
I would say certainly take your time when learning these practices. And what I teach is specifically that, easing your way into this opening and this welling of pleasure. Um, so I would say yes, put that as an opportunity, but don't force or pressure yourself to somehow have to create something new. Know that this is available to you, and take your time in learning about this making of love and really creating that vulnerability. So you got to be with somebody you feel good with. I hope you feel good with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you work with yourself. I did for many months. 6 months was my initial phase, where every single day I was self-pleasuring and sensing and recreating the way I feel pleasure. And then eventually from that point, I was able to start sharing that with someone else with long lasting, and we're doing 3, 4 times a day, you know, several hours of lovemaking. And that's eventually when I had this
Yeah.
Kundalini. Yeah.
But I think it's really important what you're saying is that you took the 6 months to cultivate this. And a lot of people, they think that they should just maybe take one Tantra workshop and suddenly they're going to be having these mind-blowing orgasms. And it's possible to take one Tantra workshop and have mind-blowing orgasms. I think it's a little easier for women in some, like, on one level, it's a little easier for women. But I think it's also what you said is that it's a little bit vulnerable and scary in the beginning. And I want to say that when I had my big sexual awakening and like I was just like became Orgasma Girl, it was simultaneously one of the most difficult times of my entire life, because all that energy is moving up your body and pulling things out and making things come up. And it's kind of, if you want to open that energy up, you have to be ready for the fact that it's going to like bring up all your deepest shit.
Yes. Yeah. It can bring up some nasty stuff. It brought up my deepest shit, hardcore. And it was like almost like a truth serum, so to speak. Like I had to be in full integrity, full truth, and fully facing all of these things thing that came up. Otherwise, my whole nervous system would literally burn me. And I thought,
Uh-huh.
man, my life is over. My nervous system like destroyed. But I healed it through qigong and many practices, and just being in full truth, full integrity, and that boosted my life tremendously in terms of how I see and the willingness to like to take the guard down. You have to be willing to take the guard down. I do this class called Orgasmic Heart Meditation, and I've definitely had people, men and women, that burst into like tons of pleasure and orgasm and feeling this intensity flow through them. However, there's definitely at least half of them that are there frustrated, struggling, confused, unable to open, resistant, at least half, and that's also good because it's like, hey, you can see what's happening and where your threshold is, where your boundaries are, where your barriers are. It's good to see them in order to see whether, how you can get beyond them and take that time. So there's no need to like burst into like this huge Kundalini awakening because, like you said, it can be pretty intense.
So sexuality can be a spiritual path.
Yes, it could be a path that, if you allow it, it's almost like some people are seeking, but for me, when I had this experience, it's taking me somewhere. It's like a completely different vibration. Where okay, you're seeking for spirituality. This was like boom, Kundalini. Okay, now I have to go here. I have to go in this direction. It's moving me.
So it actually came up and told you, how did that work? I want to hear more.
Yeah. So when it came forward, what happened was it's like a signal where if something in my life is out of alignment, it will start buzzing intensely within my nervous system, and particularly my spine. And it could buzz to an intensity where it's like, not fun. It's almost like being electrocuted. It's like really not fun.
I talked about that on the morning practice, how it's like our truth and our real wisdom is in the body. So if we're trying to make all the decisions in the head, we're cut off from our truth. And once we feel our truth and we can in the body and we connect with our body, we're much more able to live in alignment with who we are.
Yes, definitely. So it was like a full body wisdom awakening, and then me like me having to align to it in order for me to feel well, like, oh, okay, that energy is eased down. I can actually live a normal life. Because when the energy is up to this intensity, it's you can't do normal things. It's like you have to like rest or something, or like be focusing on trying to cleanse and to ease the body. So that's where it directed me. So there's things happening in my life. I was like, it's like, not, rather than asking where do I need to go, it's like telling me you need to go here. It's like, okay, so we gotta go, And thankfully it lines me up into a place of like being in full truth, full integrity, and honesty and vulnerability. That blossomed my life in a big way.
And so for people who are on their own right now with no person to be sensual or sexual with, and could be for a long time, it's possible. What would you say in terms of this practice? Like, now's the time.
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that it's possible to exchange energy with others without being in the same room, without even being in the same space. If you look up Deva President's Energy Orgasm on YouTube, you'll see me doing energy work on my lover and her completely responding powerfully exactly where my hands are without touching her at all. No touch. And so just because we're in this kind of like isolated space does not mean we can't exchange and synergize our energies together. There's beautiful ways of doing that. And I'm happy to guide people through that kind of process where you can align with your magnetism and expand that energy to a point where you're touching others that want to be touched, and you being touched and feeling that and being able to really engage in that way. Yeah. So don't think you're alone. You're not alone. we can all stay connected in this way, and it's very yummy and juicy, and yeah.
And it's also a good time to practice those energetic tools to start really creating that relationship with yourself, so that on the other side, when you are able to be with someone, it's going to be a lot juicier.
Yes, exactly. And I have a book for y'all. I have a book and an e-course. The book is all about, it's called Limitless Lover, How to Last Long in Bed. It's free. You can get it right from my site. And it goes through many, many, many different steps and very specific on like what you can do to enhance your lovemaking experience, and all the practices can be done with yourself. Yes.
That is so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And then the second part is about limitless pleasure, and it talks about a lot about the female body and how to expand one's internal pleasure for those who have challenges accessing a certain level of pleasure in their body. It's really, really wonderful in terms of like how to engage with the body and discover, make it an act of discovery, make the making of love a nuance of discovering oneself and how those things form. Don't think you already know everything about love, right? There's always something more to learn and to
always
discuss.
Something more.
Yeah.
And our sexuality is like often the part that's been sort of repressed in spirituality. So when we bring that out and we make it whole and it becomes part of our wholeness, it's such a new way of being alive.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like making it a ritual, a devotional practice, whether you're with yourself or with another. Like literally saying, okay, I'm going to devote this time, rather than like, oh, okay, now I feel horny or I feel something, I'm gonna do something with it. Like say, I'm gonna devote time to myself and offer myself the space, give it 20 minutes to an hour at least, and say, and love myself, make love with myself. And that means touching all the body, finding out, whoa, how does it feel in the ears? That must feel really good. Oh, what about along the clavicle bone here and the collar, and you know, this being sensual with oneself, including, of course, the genitals. You know, even the anus. A lot of people like are afraid of anal play, right? Wash yourself, get nice and clean. There is some amazing, incredible pleasure that's available to you that you have not tapped into.
One of my favorite spots on the whole body.
Yeah.
Everyone should have a butt plug.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Let's drop these taboos and like really like engage with especially the anus, because that's the root, right? And the root has the survival in it. And I know a lot of us right now are wondering about our survival. And so if we can open that energy and bring sensuality to it, it will help us alleviate some of the stress and the tension and the fear around what is my future, you know, the anxiety of like, will I survive this, you know, this experience? Open that area, bring pleasure to that area.
Yummy. Yes. Yes. Ah. Thank you so much, Teva, and appreciated you being here so much, all your wisdom. I want all your books and courses and all of it. So yeah, thank you so much, love. And let's all make a commitment to more lovemaking.
Yes, definitely.
World and with ourselves, with beautiful, trustworthy people, and with the planet, because actually you can use this energy to make love with the trees and with the entire universe.
Yeah, let's make love to life. Please visit Orgasmic Heart. Like I said, I have lots of free video previews and a free ebooks and an e-course, a whole works. And I'm happy to share this because I know how much it's touched my life and benefited many people. And I want to continue benefiting lives. Feel good.
Beautiful. Sorry, I've got a dog barking. Okay, love. Sending you out blessings out in Guatemala. Lots of love.